Hello friends, and welcome back to the channel, where today I'm going to be walking you through how I completed quest number 2 in the brand new Wheel of Fate content that just came out this past week. So if you watched the first guide, you might know how this is going to be structured. If not, I'll briefly cover it again. I'm not going to show you the entirety of every single fight that I did in quest number 2. I'm only going to show enough for you to get a good idea of how to take the fight with the champ that I am using here, and then I'll talk through some of the alternates that I have listed as well. I'm also not going to go too in-depth into the fight itself. Again, I'm kind of assuming that you may have already watched quest number 1 and are familiar with the fights themselves. The fights themselves aren't changing. They are the same as in the first quest. You're just going to be using different attackers. So let's start off with this GORR here, who has a node where he has to use 4 special ones, and then he's going to need to use a different special, and obviously you want that to be the special 2. So the big ask in this fight, skill-wise, is to learn the special 2 decks. And you want to dex when he raises the sword, which he will do 2 times, and then he'll like dash in with like a sword stab, and that one's pretty easy to dex out of the way. So if you're using like a rank 3, rank 4 champ, it's likely that you'll be able to survive a couple of those. If not, you're just going to have to restart and go back in. Don't worry about reviving on this fight, since it is the first fight. Now, Void here is a really good option for GORR, specifically because Void has easy access to regen reversal, and if you use the leader for him in quest number 1, functionally going to be very similar. Just spam special 1 with Void, get Fear of the Void up, get those petrifies up, and the more health that you remove from GORR with your basic attacks, the more health is going to be reversed when he triggers those regen. So the start of the fight can be pretty slow with Void, but the further in you go, you're going to notice that his health is going to be diminishing very quickly here. So let's talk about some of the alternate options, because the regen in this fight is pretty strong. Wong is really good. He deals a ton of damage and can out-damage the regen in this fight. And then the other alternate I have listed here is Mr. Fantastic, who is not currently available as a 7-star, but if you are coming at this quest like in another month or 2, Mr. Fantastic will have been made available, and he is a really good heal reversal option as well. Now, if you have a Void, I would definitely recommend using Void here. Void is exclusively available in the Loyalty Crystal, so pretty tough to get, and you do really want him duped for this as well, but he is undoubtedly the best option for this core. Alright, let's move on to DAZZLER. This is another really long fight. If you did this fight with anybody but Vox in quest number 1, you're familiar with how lengthy and tedious this fight can be. So the basic idea here is that every time you gain a bar of power, you're going to be giving DAZZLER what's called a dynamo charge. And then whenever you knock her down, she transforms those dynamo charges into like instant power gain. And I think each dynamo charge is like 30% of a bar of power. So if you are gaining power pretty quickly or holding on to your specials, whenever you knock her down, you could potentially push her to her special 2 or even her special 3 if you haven't been managing her power properly. Now, Spider-Ham is a really good option for this fight because he can get by with just spamming his special 1, right? Now, there are points in this fight that I'm not sure I will be able to show, maybe with editing in post-processing I'll be able to show it, but where I do go for the special 2 and then the special 3 once I have like 25 of those power sting charges, just to try and like maximize my damage output. And for that, what you want to do is when you are ready to throw your special 2, your special 3, she's going to have like a bunch of those dynamo charges, right? So you just want to make sure that she is at like 0 power. So like push her just over a bar of power, bait the special attack, and then immediately use your special 2, your special 3. And that will give her, the least amount of power possible and hopefully keep her below 2 bars. Because her special 2 deck's a little bit tricky. The special 1 is easy, and obviously you don't want to push her to her special 3. So this is a really long fight, again, with pretty much anybody in this pool. You have to also watch out with DAZZLER for her Dazzling Dash, so you're going to get faltered potentially. You also have to stay close to her, so be aggressive. Make sure that you are punishing every special attack. If that gray root timer on you expires, if you're too far away from her for too long, you are going to get rooted. And if you are rooted and she has that Dazzling Dash, you're pretty much hosed, because she can stun you through your block, full combo you right into a special, and you're going to take a butt ton of damage here. So here you can see she has used enough power stings where we're starting to approach the cap of 25 of those on her. So at this point I'm kind of like considering how I want to go about maximizing my damage output here. So there, she's hit the cap of 25. Now what I want to do is eventually work my way up to the special 3, which is going to place 25 of those power stings on her at once, and that's going to do the most amount of damage possible with Ham in this fight. Let's talk through some of the other options here. Jean Grey, a newly available 7-star. You probably don't have her. She's only in the Titan and available via her feature crystals last month. So good option, just good damage output. Again, suffers in this fight a little bit because Dazzler reduces the crit damage rating of non-tech champs. I don't think that there are many tech champs in this small utility pool, other than like Spider-Man Stark Enhanced, who is a really, really good option here. So if you have a good tech champion like Sparky ranked up in this pool, they're going to be doing the most damage quickly because, again, they won't suffer from that crit damage reduction that Dazzler places on you. Spider-Punk, another pretty good option. A lot of his damage is those ruptures, damage over time. So he can deal a lot of damage relatively quickly, and his the Encore passive that he places, if you have him duped, really goes a long way to reducing the damage of the special 1 and encouraging her to throw the same special repeatedly, so that's really, really useful as well. I think that's all I wanted to say about the Dazzler fight. Again, a really long, kind of tedious fight. She's only the second fight on the quest, so if you have a really strong option for the GORR, you might consider restarting here if you don't do like a really good first run. Otherwise, a few revives maximum, and you'll be able to get this fight down. Alright, let's move on to Lady Deathstrike, another really long, really tedious, but ultimately pretty safe fight with just about anybody. So you need to use a size small offensive burst champion, and I think the best option for most people is probably going to be Medusa. Of course, Medusa, not available right now in the basic pool. She was one of the Glorious Guardians available last December, I think it was. Don't know when or if she'll be available in the basic pool, so you'll definitely want to look at an alternate if you don't have her. Now with Medusa, she has the ability to armor break on her medium attack, so she can pretty much keep Lady Deathstrike's armor off of her at all times. And that means that when the armor up is gone, she disables the regenerator, allowing Lady Deathstrike to heal and also go unstoppable during special attacks, which means you can pretty much use any special attack with Medusa as long as you already have her armor up gone when you do it. So in this fight, you can see I'm kind of taking a few different approaches here, trying to feel out what's going to work best for her. There are a few ways that you can trigger Armor Shattered with Medusa in this fight. I started off with a Special 3 because I wasn't quite sure what my most efficient way of dealing damage was going to be in this fight. So started off with the Special 3, did a decent chunk, gets me access to the True Accuracy, gets me access to the Armor Shattered. The problem is, it's just too many bars of power here. So you have a couple other options to get the Armor Shattered up. One of them is the Special 2. So the stun on the Special 2 is actually long enough for you to do 6 medium attacks in a row and get your Armor Shattered up that way, which is really nice. Otherwise, you can just stick with standard Medusa play, and as long as you have the Armor Break on her, again, the armor up is gone, you can just do medium Special 1. That will also trigger Armor Shattered. So kind of just, do whatever special with Medusa that you feel most comfortable with. Obviously, if you're having a hard time dealing with that power drain node, which requires you to dash back as the timer is expiring, you might just want to stick with special 1s. That way you don't have to manage your power as much as possible. Also with Lady Deathstrike, you want to stick to the Special 1 as much as possible because she places that Torment debuff on you, and that is free willpower healing for a good chunk of the fight. And I actually think that with Medusa, I do end up finishing this fight with a full yellow bar. It's like a long fight, 7-ish, 7.5 minutes or so with Medusa at rank 3. But again, ultimately a very safe fight. Her special attacks are very easy to avoid as long as you don't get cornered, because they are unblockable and very difficult to deal with that way. You should be fine. And again, lots of free willpower healing makes this a pretty simple fight. Just long and a little bit boring, if we're being honest. Let's talk through some of the alternate options I have listed there. I actually want to start with the third one, which is Rocket Raccoon. BMcG put out a really nice short showing how Rocket is effective in this fight. What you want to do with him is make sure that you heavy attack to get the armor break on her first, and then you can just spam special 2s, and his crit rate is so high, he's almost guaranteed to do an enormous amount of damage with a big special 2 crit, and you can just chunk her down that way. Again, you really need to make sure that the armor break is on her before you use those special attacks, otherwise she's going to heal back a majority of that damage. So Rocket Raccoon, a little bit shorter than Medusa, roughly a 5 or so minute fight with a rank 3. a really good option available in the basic pool. So if you have him, even at rank 2, I think he would be fine for this fight as well. Gamora, also a really good option. Gamora does not have a way of armor breaking Lady Deathstrike outside of a special attack, so I think with her, you really just want to focus on maximizing your Furies with your light attacks, keeping them paused with the heavy, and then firing off like many big special 3s. Probably going to be a long fight, and she is kind of reliant on those heavy counters, so you need to have your spacing right if you're going to heavy counter Deathstrike special attacks, or you're going to have to be parrying a lot, which is dangerous with all those disorients on you. But I think Gamora could work. Might be a longer fight than Medusa for sure. And then finally, let's talk about Storm, who I have listed here. I think Storm could be pretty good for this. This is kind of a theory. Obviously, I haven't been able to practice or test out Storm in this fight, but I think how I would play this fight with Storm is very similar to how I just described playing with Gamora. Obviously, you don't want to be firing off special 1s or special 2s with her because she has no way of removing the armor up. She's already playing at class disadvantage, and Deathstrike's just going to heal up most of that big damage or trigger unstoppable and then punish her. However, if you can successfully keep all of her prowess buffs paused with heavies as you work your way up to the special 3, a special 3 with a whole bunch of those prowess buffs is going to deal some incredible damage, and I think she would be able to chunk Deathstrike down without a lot of difficulty. Really important, of course, that you manage the power drain node or the power removal node in that fight with Storm, since she is entirely dependent on her special 3 for damage. But I think I'm not sure she is the best option for this. I think she can work if she's your only option. But if you have like Medusa, if you have Rocket, I think those are probably the best 2 options for this fight. Alright, moving on to a simple but still very difficult fight against this Enchantress here. Basically the same fight as it was in quest number 1, just with some different characters. Obviously you don't really have the safety net of Onslaught that you did in quest 1. Still some pretty good options for this fight in quest 2 though. So as it was in the previous quest, the big ask here is that you really need to know or learn the full Special 1 dex, because all of her special attacks will be unblockable. You can't dex the Special 2, so you really don't want to push her to the Special 2 ever, which means you need to continuously bait the Special 1. After that, you need to work on removing all of her spells, otherwise she's going to reflect all that damage back to you on her next Special 1. I actually ended up having to rank up a champion for this fight, so Quicksilver and all the other options I have listed at the top of the screen there, I only have them at rank 1, so I ended up having to rank somebody up to rank 2. This is only a rank 2 Quicksilver. Not the biggest fan of Quicksilver, but the thing about him that was most appealing for me for this fight in particular is that he has an increased window of invulnerability during his dex. He gets like extra frames, so his dex window is just larger, which I found very useful and helpful for me to more consistently get the full dex on Enchantress' Special 1. You still need to pretty much understand the timing, but Quicksilver is much more forgiving with it than any other champ other than like Nightcrawler, who isn't in this pool anyway. So yeah, Quicksilver, he gets the job done. I'm not the best Quicksilver player, obviously, because I don't use him a lot or like him very much. But he's pretty useful here. I talked through this fight with like MSD, and he just recommended, just doing like medium, light, medium, and just spamming Special 2. So that's kind of what I stuck to on this fight. I'm probably not playing him in the optimal way. I didn't really care. I knew that I wasn't going to solo. I knew that this was going to cost me several revives. I think it ended up being like 4 or 5 with him. So not bad. Fully boosted rank 2. I'll take that. That's a fair trade-off for me. So, all right, let's talk through some of the alternate options here. The first one I have listed is Hulk. This was recommended to me by somebody in my alliance who said basically you just want to use your Special 3 when he enters that Gamma Rage mode, and that's going to put a giant physical vulnerability on her and just do a bunch of damage. It's Hulk. He dishes out a lot of damage. Very, very tanky champion as well. Next one is Captain America Infinity War. Again, exclusively available. Doesn't really need the signature ability because you don't really need his like team effects in this quest, so you can use him safely unduped. Just really good for a parry heavy style champ. Very simple champ to use for this fight, I think. And, you know, again, it all comes down to that special 1 dex. You can play any champ however you need to, as long as you dex that special 1. Ant-Man also very good. He can glance if he has that unsteady debuff on her, which means if you do happen to face tank a special 1, it's not going to do as much damage as it might otherwise do to somebody else. Another champion that I actually tested on like just an Enchantress duel is Hulkbuster, who is in the Avengers male pool. I do not use Hulkbuster for this fight because his power drain actually triggers an ability that Enchantress has where if she loses her power, she instantly gains that power back, and it's just not a fun time. So, you know, if you try and go into this fight with Hulkbuster, you know, hoping to keep her at very low power with his special 2, it's just not going to work. She's just going to gain that power back. So, Iron Man, OG Iron Man, also in this pool. I don't really think he can ramp up very well. He can't block specials to keep his armor ups paused against an unblockable Mystic, so I really wouldn't recommend him here. Quicksilver, really good option even for a bad Quicksilver player like me, so I would recommend him for this fight. Alright, let's move on to a significantly easier fight. We have this Thor Ragnarok here, and in this fight he has that node from the EOP Heimdall where he gets that brace passive, which is that blue unstoppable icon, and if you want to knock him down with a special attack or a heavy, you need to put that brace passive on cooldown by punishing one of his heavies. So anytime you are ready to use a heavy attack, special attack, just bait out a heavy from him first, and then you'll get a decent amount of time where he'll be freely able to be knocked down. So I'm using Phoenix here. Phoenix was available free last month, so you might have her on your roster. She is pretty good for this. She dishes out a lot of damage. She ramps up very quickly, and as long as you don't use the special 3, she is able to maintain her damage with those Furies very, very easily. Another big appeal for me of using Phoenix is that if you happen to have her awakened, and again, awakening her required money, or if you had a Cosmic Gem like I did, it was for free. But her Awaken ability has an auto block counter, which means with, I think it's 5 Furies, she counters auto block completely, which means that you can safely intercept Thor on this fight, and you won't trigger his auto block, which is really nice. I don't think that I intercept him very much in this fight. I'm kind of like too busy managing his power gain, which is probably the trickiest part about using Phoenix in this fight, because you really want to avoid the special 3. The special 3 kind of removes all of your ramp, right, and then you have to re-ramp if you use it. So when she gets that like massive power gain, you kind of have to fire off the unblockable special 2 in order to save her from getting to 3 bars of power and then like losing your ramp here. So this is almost a solo. Again, very, very good champ. I love using Phoenix. I like her playstyle a lot. So beyond just, you know, knowing how to play her, and there's a guide available on the channel for how to play her, this fight is really all about properly managing Thor's power gain, which he's going to get both from you hitting into him normally, like the 20 hits, and then whenever he gains, I think it's like 40 combo, he triggers the power gain as well. So you kind of always want to have a special attack ready with which to turn off that power gain. And I think at some point, close to like 75% health, I think he just turtles up and doesn't throw a special attack. And if he gets the special 3, the fight is pretty much over because you're going to be cornered. He's immediately going to just start plowing into you. And if you survive the basic attacks, all the shocks that he is going to place on you from touching him is going to kill you instead. So that was a close call there. As you saw, we're kind of in a bad spot here, trying to salvage what we can. But yeah, let's talk through some of the other options. I saw a lot of people using Hyperion for this fight. Hyperion is great for this fight because he has that nice power gain, which means he is almost always going to have a special available. And even if you get up to the special 3, you can use it, and he's still going to get another special attack very, very quickly. So if you have a Hyperion available in the basic pool, really, really good option. I think you can heavy counter Thor's heavy and build up your Furies that way, so he has access to a lot of like really nice damage. Really, really good option for this fight. Crossbones, very skill-intensive champ for this fight, but again, you know, you need to be baiting a lot of heavies. Thor's special attacks are really good for heavy countering, so if you are a strong Crossbones player, you can keep your Furies paused that way pretty easily, I would think. I don't particularly enjoy using Crossbones, so he was not my first option here, but if you are good with him, if you enjoy using him, very, very good option as well. Last alternate I have listed here is Howard the Duck, who is an underrated champion for this. Because you can do a lot of heavies safely in this fight while that brace passive is on cooldown, you can actually ramp up Howard very, very quickly. And once you get his Furies ramped and the armor breaks ramped, you can basically just deal a lot of damage on your basic attacks and use whatever special you want in order to manage Thor's power gain. So not a lot of people, I think, have invested rank up materials into Howard the Duck, but he's a very good champ, and if you have him for this and you don't have one of the other good options, I would recommend him as well. Okay, moving on to another simple but kind of tricky fight. Really will teach you how to play against Arcade if you kind of crutch on an Undermine champ like I tend to do against him. So in this pool of champions, the large offensive burst, there is no option for an Undermine champ, and Arcade turns off like True Accuracy and True Strike. So somebody like Odin who gets True Strike won't work just to counter auto block on his own. So you do have to play this fight with whoever you go in here with in a very specific way. So I'm using Serpent here. He's probably the best overall option in this pool. A lot of people have him ranked up for defense. Very, very good attacker as well. So in this fight, there are kind of two different ways you can play it. You can do what I'm doing here, which is only bait the special 2 from Arcade, and then immediately after you bait out the special 2, you want to bait out a heavy attack, and then you want to heavy counter him after the first hit of his heavy. If you wait until the heavy is done, he is going to resist it. You have to do it after the first hit before he places that like fart gas trap on the ground. And then from there, just continually push him back up to a special 2 and, rinse and repeat. So doing this will keep the tokens off of Arcade, which means you aren't going to trigger his auto block, which is really the most dangerous part of this fight. Without an actual auto block counter, you just have to make sure that Arcade never has enough tokens to trigger an auto block on his own. So you can play this way with a special 2 with pretty much anybody. I have Werewolf listed, Odin, very tanky champ. There's a lot of chip damage in this fight. This is a rank 3 Serpent, and I do barely survive at the end. It's like, 5% or less health, I think, at the end. And that is, kind of dependent on how aggressive Arcade is. Like, you'll notice, like, he does, like, a bunch of combos into my block. Sometimes he'll do multiple hits, then back off, come back in for another combo. So if he's like really cooperative and he's throwing heavies right away, you're going to take a lot less chip damage in this fight than I do. But it's really kind of luck of the draw here. But again, like Serpent, really good. Odin, very, very tanky champion with that big potent armor up buff that he has. Really, really good for this fight as well. Now, the other way to play this fight is with just baiting out the special 1. We kind of talked about this in the Quest 1 video. If you know the full decks for the special 1, where you can, dash in after he plops the green slime on you, and then you can dash out of the way of the electric blast, that is definitely a good way to play this fight. The problem there is that it still leaves the trap on the arena. So if you happen to step back into the trap, you're still going to get those torment debuffs, you're still going to get those poisons, and whenever you would be poisoned against Arcade, he's going to gain tokens. So, in my opinion, the much safer approach to this fight is to play it like this. And even if it costs you, 1 or 2 revives because of chip damage, I feel like it's much safer, much more straightforward than trying to manage the SB1 decks consistently. And I think most champions have heavies that are good enough to counter Arcade's heavy. So Serpent's heavy has really good range, Odin's is really good, Werewolf's also very good. So pretty much anybody from the pool can work for this fight in this quest. It's really just a matter of who you're comfortable with and playing the fight the correct way, and you'll get through it. Alright, moving on to the next fight against the leader, and unlike Quest 1, there aren't any options in the Thunderbolts pool that you can use to keep the debuffs from leader off of you. Remember in Quest 1 you use Black Cat, you use Mantis, and you can prevent his debuffs, which really eliminates the risk of you getting your healing reversed or your power gain reversed if you were to parry him. Don't have that luxury in this pool. That being said, there are still plenty of very, very good options here. And as long as you stay aggressive with any of them, you won't be triggering enough debuffs to get like a lot of regen reversed here. So with Bullseye, you just play him like you would normally play Bullseye. I prefer the special 2, so I'm just building up to 2 bars of power, letting the evade trigger, and firing off the special 2. Be aggressive, learn the special 1 decks, because you get like a good half a second to a second of close proximity to him during that special 1 dex, and you can trigger a few ticks of regen there from close encounters, which is good for keeping yourself topped up. And as long as you're aggressive and you don't intercept him, again, you're not going to have too many of those debuffs on you. If you do intercept him, it's going to pause the debuffs on you. So you don't want to parry, you don't want to trigger the power gain via parry, and you don't want to intercept. So your openings in this fight need to come from either baiting a heavy or punishing his special 1, which is kind of how I'm doing. And once you kind of get into a rhythm, if you know the special 1 decks, he is pretty aggressive, he's pretty cooperative, I've found. So you can just kind of get into like a good cycle where you're just dealing damage, baiting the special 1, you know, dealing damage, throwing your special, and kind of rinsing and repeating here. So keeping the debuffs off of you this way by being aggressive is also going to keep those stacks of protection off of leader. So every personal debuff that he has on you, he gets a stack of that protection, which reduces all damage by a certain percentage. So it's really kind of incumbent on you to make the fight shorter by keeping those debuffs off of you as much as you can. So like I said, Bullseye, really good option here. He has class advantage, which is ultimately why I went with him over some of the other options. Crossbones is really good. He's probably the only option that can reduce the ability accuracy of the debuffs in the Thunderbolts pool. So again, if you are a very good Crossbones player and you didn't already use him for a previous fight against like THOR, he can be pretty good here as well. Craven is an interesting option. He has that Endurance passive, which reduces the duration of non-damaging debuffs. So if you have a Craven, if you like Craven, again, kind of a rare champ. I think he was only available via a sale event last year or the year before. Once he builds up those Endurance passives, the duration of leaders' debuffs are going to be pretty short. And again, that's going to go a long way towards preventing the heal reversal, preventing the power reversal, and keeping those stacks of protection off of leader. The option that most people will go with, though, if they don't have Bullseye or aren't comfortable with Crossbones, is going to be Photon. And again, you just want to play her straight up. She just dishes out so much damage. She's very tanky. And again, you know, Bullseye, Crossbones, Photon, all top options for this fight. It really kind of depends on who you're comfortable using, who you have on your roster, but all of them are very effective. Alright, speaking of Bullseye, let's talk about him. He is the next fight. This was probably the most annoying fight in this quest for me because, again, I kind of lacked really good options. I had already used all of my remaining rank-up materials for Quicksilver, so I was really stuck using one of my existing R2s or using a rank 1 champion, which I really didn't want to use. So I ended up kind of, you know, thinking about it for a while and settling on Havok here, and truthfully, you know, Havok works okay in this fight. I don't think he would be my first option to recommend people for this fight. If you have like any of the other alternate champs ranked up to rank 2 or rank 3, I would definitely use them before I would recommend Havok. Havok takes so much block damage in this fight, as you can see. Like, we are already less than halfway dead, and we've done less than 10% damage to Bullseye. So, like, when I did the math on this, I was like, this is going to take me, like, 10 revives, isn't it? So, my thinking going in here with Havok is that he punishes the Purify node that Bullseye has on him. Wherever he uses a special attack, he purifies up to 4 debuffs, and between that node and just like the big potential special damage, I feel like he could have like bursted down Bullseye. And I kind of adjusted my strategy, like, you know, 1 or 2 revives in, and kind of only going for the special 3 when I have, you know, the 10 plasma buildups on him and the 10 plasma charges on myself. That's like maximum damage here. So for me, if I thought that I could get like 1 big special 3 in per like revive, that was like a win for me. So I think this ended up being, let me look here real quick. This ended up being 5 revives for me. Definitely my most expensive fight in Quest 2. But again, if you might have a better option available than Havok, I would highly recommend you use probably somebody else. I was kind of stuck using like a suboptimal champ for this fight. The good news is that there are plenty of better options, so let's cover them up in that alternate section. The first one is Dazzler. If you have a Dazzler ranked up, if you have her awakened and then have access to that pursuit passive that she gets on the Dazzling Dash, she's a pretty good option for Bullseye, as you might already know. She's going to reduce his crit damage rating, like we've talked about several times in her fight earlier in the video. So Bullseye's crits through your block, if you get hit, aren't going to do as much damage as they would to anybody else. Very important for this fight because because he starts off with those 3 cruelties that you need to remove by baiting out a heavy and punishing the heavy. So Dazzler, very, very strong option. Maybe just as strong, if not stronger, is Blue Team's Cyclops, who is very, very strong for this fight. So Cyclops has access to that true focus buff, which lets him counter Bullseye's evade, and it's refreshable, which is really, really nice as well. So with Cyclops, you basically just play him normally. You can build up to your special 3 if you can get enough of like those light backdrafts up, or you can dump your power into a special 2 while you build up enough of those charges or prowess or whatever it is. And then you can just kind of, nuke Bullseye down in large chunks. In addition, if you have just awakened Cyclops from the Titan, his signature ability stores bleed damage as adrenaline. So like all of the bleeds that you're going to get from taking blocked hits from dexing Bullseye's special attack, that's all going to be saved up as adrenaline. And if you follow that up with a special attack of his own, it allows him to recoup some of that health, which is really, really nice. So Cyclops, very, very strong option if you have him. Another good anti-evade option for this fight is Iceman. You notice we're just going through the who's who of Bullseye counters, because this is really just a Bullseye with a lot of health. There's not really a lot of extra stuff on here going on in here in this fight. Iceman, very, very good. Keep that cold snap up with a special 1, and that should allow you to more consistently push him to the special 2, which means you're going to tank a lot less damage. And then finally, Sunspot. He's got that perfect block available on special attacks if you perfect block the first hit. A lot of damage limitation there will probably work pretty well. In addition, when Bullseye purifies the Incinerate debuffs, it triggers a power gain on Sunspot and also grants him stacks of Flare State, I think, so he can more effectively ramp up against a champion or node like in this fight where the defender is going to be purifying debuffs a lot. So any option is going to work. Probably don't use Havok. If you have any of the other 4 available, I would highly recommend you use them instead. Alright, thankfully after that Bullseye fight, we have a much easier fight here against Human Torch. The restriction pool is #Gamma. A lot of really, really strong options in this pool. So again, just kind of choose whoever you're most comfortable with. I really like Deathless She-Hulk. I like the way that she's able to ramp up her damage over the course of a fight, and I feel like she is probably one of, if not the fastest option for this fight. So talk about the nodes again briefly. If you remember the Attorney of Pain Absorbing Man fight, he came with a node where it allows the attacker to override their damage type between physical and energy damage. And you start off this fight in physical damage mode. You can switch modes by using a heavy attack. Obviously you don't want to do that because energy attacks are going to grant Human Torch Smolder, and then you're eventually going to incinerate yourself and trigger Nova Form, and then you're going to get Nova Flames on yourself, and you're going to die immediately. The problem is that in this fight, he also has a protection node that you might recognize from AQ, where eventually you are going to have to land a heavy attack. Otherwise, the protection stacks are going to stack up, and you're going to be doing no damage at all here. So what you kind of want to do here is kind of hold off on using your heavy for as long as possible. So use the double medium, use the special attack knockdown in order to remove the protection stacks that way. So until you have just like the purple H left, and then you can wait until he gets a stack of protection or even 2 stacks, and then do a heavy attack twice in a row. The first one will switch you into energy mode and also remove protection. The second one will switch you back to physical mode, and that means that you are in that energy mode for as little time as possible and granting him as little smolder as possible. Once you kind of know that, the rest of the fight becomes pretty straightforward. Just play, your champion the way that you want to. Now with Deathless She-Hulk, she's going to be, putting that pseudo taunt on Torch with all of her trauma debuffs, which means that more often than not, he's going to be throwing the special 1 rather than the special 2. So if you know the full decks for the special 1, it's really nice because the special 1 is going to pause his temperature, or raise and pause his temperature, so you don't really want to get knocked down by it. And then of course, if you can push him to the special 2 at any opportunity, you should do so. It's a lot easier of a dex. Now in this fight, you also want to be throwing your specials right away after you gain a bar of power. When you gain a bar of power, you get a 10-second timer on you, and if you don't use any special attack in that time frame, then he gets debuff immunity for a good amount of time. And especially with And a lot of the champs in this pool being science champs, being dependent on debuffs, you don't want to trigger that debuff immunity. And for She-Hulk, that means that you really can't risk getting up to her special 3 and putting the Debilitate on Torch to make all of her debuffs last longer. So at some point here, I think it's already happened, I actually ended up losing most of my traumas just because the tempo of this fight needs to be very, very quick because you can't punish his special 1. So let's talk quickly about the alternates before I kill this guy here. Overseer, very tanky, very, very strong champion. That physical damage burst on in Cosmic Mode, very strong. Red Hulk is not Incinerate immune, but he will immediately shrug them off, so a decent option for this as well. And then finally Hulk, also a very strong option if you didn't already use him on the Enchantress fight from earlier. Alright, moving on to another difficult fight. We have the big bad Serpent here, and you need to use a medium champ with the offensive burst tag. So not a lot of like really awesome Serpent counters in this pool. The best one is probably America Chavez. If you have an America Chavez, even if she's at rank 2, I would say she's probably the best and fastest option for this fight. And the chief reason you want to use America Chavez over anybody else that I have listed here is her ability to turn off and reverse Serpent's power gain. Since she's a Mystic champ, you let your heavies fully complete, you get, 2 or more of those purple dimensions, and that's actually going to keep his power gain completely in check. And remember, in this fight, when you are far away from Serpent, his power gain buffs are going to be paused, which means that with most other champions, the power gain is going to get out of control very, very quickly. You're going to let him ramp, you're going to let him build those Furies, and you're going to be taking a crap ton of chip damage through your block from that special 1 or the special 2. But Chavez really limits Serpent's ability to gain power, limits his ability to throw specials, and is very, very good in general. This fight ended up costing me 1 revive with rank 3 Chavez here. You can definitely solo with her. I ended up just making too many mistakes. One of the things that I struggled with in this fight with her was managing her power gain. So on the special 1, she gains power proportionate to how many unique dimensions she has active. But this fight also has the redlining node. So as you're about to see happen here, if you let your power get too far above 2 bars, then you end up losing it all and it gets drained down to 0. So that happened to me a bunch of times. I left a lot of damage on the table, building up to 2 bars of power and then being unable to use special 2. The other thing that I don't think I did very well in this fight with Chavez is that I went too often for the big damage special with the orange dimension rather than trying to increase my survivability by using the special 2 with the blue dimension, which will heal you for a portion of the damage dealt. So you can only last a lot longer in this fight, especially toward the end of the fight where the chip damage starts to increase more and more if you use that blue spell to heal up some of the damage. So but other than that, it's a pretty straightforward fight. If you've ever used America Chavez for Serpent in Battlegrounds before or in Alliance before, it's pretty much the same thing as you would do there. Let's talk about some of the alternates I have listed there. Count Nefaria is probably the only other really good option. And again, you're kind of able to limit Serpent's power gain a little bit. He's not a Mystic Chimp, so you can't bring it below 50%. It is a very long fight with Nefaria. I think I saw MSD's version of this fight with Nefaria last nearly 20 minutes. So get ready for a super long and arduous fight if you're going to use Nefaria for this fight. Werewolf doesn't really have any way to limit the power gain. Him and Wong, I would say, are last resorts. Like Chavez, Nefaria, those are kind of your 2 top options here. Werewolf and Wong don't really have anything, particularly useful in their kits to counter Serpent. I can't remember if Wong automatically nullifies Serpent's death immunity or not. I don't think he does, but correct me in the comments if I'm wrong about that. So yeah, Werewolf, Wong, use them if all else fails. The rest of this pool doesn't really have any phenomenal Serpent counters. So if you have Nefaria, if you have Chavez, even an underranked version of one of those, I would probably say is better for this fight than trying to make it work with a high ranking version of a bad Serpent counter. Alright, getting close to the end here, let's talk about this next fight against Spiral. Now this is a fight where the nodes here kind of encourage you to learn how to fight Spiral in general. So if you do too many of the same attack in a row, it's going to trigger an unblockable on her. So in general, you want to stick to like a medium light combo or like a parry heavy. She does also have that obstinate charge node, so her first dash attack will always be stun immune, so you will have to learn how to re-parry in order to get consistent parries against her. This fight was a struggle for me only because I am really bad at her special 1. I always mess up the dexes on the beams that she fires off. In addition, I found that I struggled with the blades on this fight when I was baiting specials from her. So my advice to you, if you also struggle with Spiral, is just to block the blades. Like, they move very slowly, so like even if you are out of range of them, the dex for them can be a little tricky because your dex will often be, you know, faster than the blades, and then they'll hit you anyways. So like when you're baiting a special, kind of treat it maybe a little bit like you're fighting Photon in pure light form, where like you dash back and immediately hold block and like wait to see if she's immediately going to fire off her blades or if she's going to like dash in and attack you, and kind of take it that way. That should increase your survivability a little bit. Now I'm using Luke Cage here. Luke Cage is very, very good for this fight. That Indestructible is super nice for keeping you alive longer, especially if you suck against Spiral like I do. With Luke Cage, it's tricky in this fight to get his exhaustions built up, but the general idea here is that you want to heavy, keep a Debilitate on her as long as possible. That's going to increase the duration of your other debuffs. And then in ideal circumstances, you want to use your special 2 with at least 5 exhaustions, and that's going to apply 2 50% concussions to Spiral, which is going to turn off a lot of the annoying stuff in this fight. So it will end up turning off the Combat Deja Vu node. It will not turn off her blades. So if you try and do like a medium light combo, even with those concussions up, she's still going to counter with her blades and stun you, and then, you know, pound your face in. So the concussions will turn off the nodes. It'll turn off the falter every 15 hits, but it won't turn off like anything like in her kit really. So just gotta kind of be prepared for that. So right there, like that's kind of what I'm talking about. Like, block the blades, try not to get hit by the beams like I am. I don't know that I fully dexed the special 1 more than like 2 times this entire fight. It was really frustrating. It ended up costing me, I think, 2 revives on this fight, just because I continuously allowed myself to get hit by the special 1, and it just you know, cost me too much health. A couple of other good options to this fight. Hitmonkey is really good just because his play style kind of already plays into how you want to play against Spiral in this fight. So Hitmonkey, you want to do a lot of short, medium combos, and especially when Spiral has those dancing blades, that is the exact combo that you want to do in order to prevent yourself from getting those blades fired off at you. So Hitmonkey, very good. If you can do like a medium into the special 2, he's going to deal a ton of crits and really do like a lot of really good damage. Bullseye also very good for this fight and is in the hashtag mercenary pool. The main benefit about using Bullseye for this fight is that he can't miss. So every 15 hits you're going to trigger that falter on yourself, just like I did there. And Bullseye, you know, he's not immune to falter like Prowler is, but he still can't miss. So even with that falter up, he's still not going to miss Spiral. So you can kind of keep your tempo up that way. The last option I have listed here is Deadpool X-Force, who is, you know, fine. You know, he can kind of slow play a fight with him, stick to, again, you know, parrying medium lights, waiting for your charges to build up, get all the way up to 2 bars of power, plus maybe like 2.9 bars of power, fire off the special 2, and then you'll have more than enough time to do like a parry medium light and fire off that special 1 for like the big bleed to boof damage. So Deadpool also a really good option in the mercenary pool. But again, like I said at the start of this clip, you know, your success in this fight is really dependent on how good you are at fighting Spiral and how quickly you can learn how to fight her. So be patient, take it slowly, take it intentionally, and you'll probably have a much better time with it than I did here. Alright, moving on to the second to last fight in this quest. It is against Dust, and I am without my Ironheart crutch. Fortunately, there are a lot of really good options for this fight in the #X-Men pool. My favorite one is definitely Negasonic, and there are a couple of really good benefits to using Negasonic. The first one is that her stun on the parry is passive, which means she will not trigger the Be Like Water node on her parry or with any of her incinerates, because they're all passes too. So you can freely parry Dust as much as you want, and you'll never trigger her unblockable. Really, really beneficial for this fight. In addition, like I just mentioned, she has easy access to a whole bunch of incinerates, and those are going to go a long way towards removing any like errant sand debuffs that you get on yourself from either hitting her when she has an armor up or by parrying her. Hopefully you're not hitting into her block, because that's like a big no-no. In addition, she doesn't rely on buffs at all, which means it is very safe with her to parry Dust when Dust gets an armor up, and you're not going to limit yourself or hurt yourself by doing that. You'll trigger that nullify, and it'll only remove the armor up from Dust, and you can kind of just continue on with the fight as normal. Now with Negasonic, you want to go for a single special 2, and then you just want to spam special 1s to refresh the incinerates and add more incinerates. Weave in some heavies where you can to place that incinerate vulnerability. Otherwise, a pretty straightforward fight. This ended up costing me 1 revive because Dust's AI pulled a little trick on me. I don't know if we'll get to it when I edit the video clip, but I'm like walking up to her, and she, I think she might be like starting to walk up towards me right there. She's like walking forward, and then she just launches the special 1 out of nowhere. And that does a whole bunch of damage and triggers a sandstorm, so I lose like a whole bunch of health after this just from the sandstorm damage, and I end up not being able to recover from like all the chip damage. So that's kind of what does me in. So hopefully she's a bit more cooperative for you. Quickly, let's go through the alternate options here. Phoenix, if you didn't use her for a previous fight against Thor, Phoenix is really, really good for this fight. The problem with her is that she is very buff reliant. So, parrying Dust, or I think even triggering the stun on her aura, I think is going to nullify one of the buffs on you. So you may struggle with her trying to keep her ramp going if you don't, if you're relying too heavily on parries or stuns. Sunspot, also really good. Again, really good access to Incinerate, not buff reliant. Can deal a whole bunch of damage once he's ramped up with a big special 2. Has that perfect block. It won't prevent you from getting sanded through your block. Like, there's no ability accuracy reduction component to it, but you will get perfect parries at least more often than not against Dust. And then finally, Longshot. I think I saw MSD use Longshot. I don't know that I would recommend using him. The main benefit of using Longshot, I think, is that his ability accuracy by default is like super high, so he really isn't subject to glancing. That being said, if you still trigger a glance against her, you're still going to get the sand on yourself. So with Longshot, the play is, build up your good karma, build up the bad karma, and then fire off the special 2 to place a whole bunch of incinerates on her. He's also not buff dependent, so he can safely parry her like Negasonic can without impacting his damage rotation. And then he also has a chance to automatically nullify the unblockable from the Be Like Water node, which is really nice too. It's not going to be a very high chance, but if you're expecting her to become unblockable when you parry, sometimes she won't be. So you can get like a free quick parry after that if you need it for whatever reason. Alright, last but not least, we have come to the final boss, Deathless Thanos, once again, and you want to go in here with somebody from the Guardians of the Galaxy. The best option, without a doubt, if you want this fight to be as fast as possible, is Beta Ray Bill. So Beta Ray Bill doesn't have any protection from reverse controls, but he does have access to a grit buff on his heavy, and you can keep that paused when you're doing his normal rotation with his buff pause buff. So Bill is a really good counter to Deathless Thanos' Unstoppable. Now, I am far from the best Bill player, frankly not even that good of a Bill player. I just kind of know how to use him, right? And still, this was only 2 revives with me, unduped rank 3 Beta Ray Bill. So that in general, what you want to do here is use your special 2, but use it with like the heavy charge, which I had forgotten about on my first run there. So, and then you want to use the special 1 spam and hopefully these shocks end while your special 1 animation is going, and then it'll deal like a whole bunch of burst damage. So like even me, a pretty scrub Beta Ray Bill player, I was able to do like 50% on my first go with Beta Ray Bill, and then I think I got him down to like 2% or so on my second run. So he has the ability to deal a whole bunch of damage, and if you are a good Bill player, if you have him duped, maybe high Sig, which increases his damage output, you can definitely solo this fight with him. So with Bill, the danger really just becomes managing the inverted controls, which, you know, the more you do it, especially if you're jumping into this quest right after quest number 1, I found that it was much easier for me to deal with the reverse controls in this quest. Remember that you can always parry THANOS to kind of wait out the end of the timer, or hold block in order to hopefully prevent him from tossing a special attack, and that'll give you like a full timer of either the normal controls or the reverse controls, and that's going to limit the chances that like they switch in the middle of a special, which is definitely the trickiest part of that node. So right here, I'm doing the Bill rotation correctly now, charging my heavy. I've got all 5 of those intensify buffs, and now I'm kind of ready to do like my main damage output. So if you do a lot of like hit conservation here, like just stick to medium lights, that it kind of also plays into Bill's kit as well, because once you run out of hits, your buff pause is going to start to expire. So you can get hopefully like a whole bunch of special 1s in before that happens. So right there, that was a decent burst. But I had a weakness on me, so not as high as it could have been. And then we're kind of already set up with the shocks refreshed. We can go right into another special 1. And again, kind of slow playing this fight allows you to naturally let most of that passive shock duration expire, which in my opinion makes it a little bit easier for you to detonate them with the special 1. Right there, that was a nice burst. You can see a big chunk of his health went down. And then we got one more refresh in before everything is going to expire. So again, sticking to parry, medium light. We've already got our next special 1 ready, so we can kind of, you know, again, slow play it, wait for the shocks to almost expire, and then you can detonate them with one more special 1. So like one really good cycle did, you know, like 30-35% of his health there. And again, if you have a high rank, high Sig, you know, Bill with a high amount of skill in playing him, you can definitely do a lot more and even solo this fight. Now, when it comes to alternate attackers for this fight, you don't really have a lot of good options, because there are several champs in the Guardians pool who are either just straight up bad or not even available as a 7-star. So your good options after Beta Ray Bill are pretty limited. Moondragon is probably the second best option because she has immunity to reverse controls. So if you are really struggling with the reverse controls in this fight, I would recommend giving Moondragon a try, because her damage output is pretty good once you get her set up, but she won't have to deal with the random changing of reverse controls. Gamora has the ability to deal a whole bunch of damage if you keep her buffs paused, and again in this fight you can safely parry heavy to kind of refresh her buffs. And then, not land like a big special 1 with those potent bleeds, or trigger an armor break on the special 2. Do remember, though, that THANOS has that safeguard mechanic built in at different thresholds of his health, so you won't be able to knock him down past that threshold with any one attack. The other options in the pool, Mantis, probably wouldn't use Mantis. She feels pretty fragile for this fight. Same thing with Rocket. Like, Rocket's health pool is pretty small, and he has class disadvantage here. If you are a really, really good Rocket player, like maybe you can deal out some nice damage to THANOS, but I would really recommend either Bill or Moondragon or Gamora. And the rest of the champs are just, either straight up bad or again, not available as a 7-star. I think that's pretty much going to do it for Quest 2. I sincerely hope that this guide was helpful to you. If it was, please remember to let me know in the comments below, as well as let me know if I missed any really good options for any of these fights. Again, I don't have the time, I don't have the space to list like all the good options, but if there was a counter that you used for any of these fights that I didn't talk about, please let me know in the comments below, because that can help somebody else who has found this guide and who's looking to complete this content. The more we can help people finish this content, the better off everybody is going to be. Feel free to share this video with your friends, with your alliance mates, with anybody you know who is struggling with this content, or if you know somebody who is thinking about jumping in and wants to know what to expect before doing so. Please consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. I think we do a lot of good stuff here, a lot of good guides on the channel. My interest is in helping people as much as possible. Also hit like if you haven't already. That helps me out with all the good YouTube algorithm stuff. And as always, thank you very much for watching. See you again next time.